Welcome. You're listening to the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast, a podcast production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. Thanks for joining us. And my name is David Ross. I am the Executive Director of the Mental Health and Recovery Board here in Ashland County, Ohio. And in the studio, it's a packed studio. We don't have a chair to spare. In the studio with me is the Clinical Director and Program Coordinator of the Liaison Program, Stacy Merriweather. How are you doing, Stacy?
Good, thank you.
And joining Stacy, we have three real-life, in-the-flesh school community liaisons. I'll have to start in seniority. We have the well-known, famous, influential Tammy Haverstock.
Good morning.
Nice to see you, Tammy. Not to be too far undone is Mr. Ted Lilly, who was mentioned recently. He got a call out at our annual luncheon, I noticed. Ted Lilly, he's off mic, but Ted is still going to yell.
Good morning, David.
Thank you, Ted. And then she's new, but she's making an impact, and she's brave to be part of the podcast, Robin Hawkins.
Good morning.
Good morning, all of you. I was really looking forward to having this conversation because on the campaign trail here with the levy, we've been talking a lot about the school community liaison program. And there's a good reason for that because it is where most of our levy funds go to. And quite frankly, I think it was one of the reasons that the levy passed. I was telling the audience at the annual luncheon that the first two times the board put the liaison on the ballot, it actually failed. And the liaison program actually was going on before we got a levy, and it was in part those early board members working with some folks like Tom Lavender, other folks that were in the school systems that said, this program is super effective, and wouldn't it be awesome if we could scale it up? And we needed additional funding, obviously, to do that. So from the very get-go, the liaison program was tied with the levy. And like I said, that third time was a charm in 2001. And here we are. 24 years later, the program is going strong. And we want to talk about it and give all of you a chance to weigh in. I've got some questions, like I said, in advance that we're going to walk through. But as all good conversations do, they go in a bunch of different directions, and we can do that however you would like to do. So the rule is whoever wants to answer. I just told everybody, let's try not to all talk at the same time. But, we can deal with that if we have to. So let me start by just asking how many, because I get this all the time, and it changes from time to time, how many liaisons are there total, and where are they at in our different districts? So anybody want to answer that one?
Yeah, well, right now we have 13 school liaisons.
13.
Covering 5 school districts.
Okay.
And then, so we have 2 in two in Hillsdale, 2 in Loudonville, two in Mapleton. Ashland has 5, so we're covering those districts, and then 2 in Loudonville.
Okay.
And then we have 1 in Crestview, and then we also have
somebody at ACA,
and then somebody at the Career Center, now known as Heartland Tech.
Yes, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that name change. Yes.
Right. So 13 total.
Wow.
So
that's awesome. And again, folks, sometimes they forget about the old Career Center and ACA, but yeah, we've made a commitment to include them as well. The only one that I know sometimes gives people a little bit of heartburn is Black River. And we have not been able to make that work over the years, but there is a portion, I think, of Ashland County folks that go up there, but we're not in Black River. But and the way Crestview worked is similar, right? There's Richland County and Ashland County kids there, but the reason we expanded is because the superintendent over there said, I want this program. And we talked with him, and we explained to him that, if we're going to expand there, it has to be from through Appleseed because, Stacy, you have been the only program coordinator for this liaison program. We did not want somebody operating that was separated from you and the rest of the team. So, and we were able to basically just pay for the percentage of Ashland County folks that were at Crestview. That's how we made that work. And I suppose the board would be open to doing something like that with Black River, but I'll have to do more legwork on that. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, that's probably the one question I get when it comes to where we're at. People always ask about Black River. So it's not like we're against it. It would just requires some conversation. So, 13 out there in those districts. And I think the other question maybe I get a lot of times is, okay, whether this is the young person that might be listening or their parents, how do I even, now that I know that they're in my district, how do I get a hold of a liaison if I might need one? What's an easy way for folks to know how to get in touch with a liaison for help?
Well, we've tried to eliminate a lot of the barriers for typical programs, so making it very easy. Referrals can come from anywhere, really. The student could walk up to the liaison in the hallway. A parent could call in. Principals refer. Teachers refer. A community professional. So really, there's no wrong door.
There's no wrong door. So that's important. I want listeners to know that. And what is so interesting about this program, again, because of the levy funding, it really maximizes flexibility of the program. So the kinds of things that the young person or the person at the school, the teacher, the staff, or the parent, the issues could be all kinds of different issues. It can be things like truancy or education or behavior, but couldn't it be other things like, housing dysfunction or food? I mean, there are other needs like that as well, I would imagine.
Absolutely. We partner with the Cleveland Food Bank to support many of our families on the weekends with the backpack meal program.
Okay.
And each district, depending on those who want to participate, the numbers vary.
Okay.
But at Crestview, we currently have 29 bags going home each weekend. Wow. And some districts are even higher, maybe double that.
Right. So again, that's why I definitely want the audience to understand this. Yes, the liaisons can be helpful when it comes to like the academics and the attendance and the behaviors, but there's a lot more to the program. It really can be specific to the needs that are being put in front of them, because you guys rarely say, no, we can't help with that. I mean, if it's
other duties as assigned.
Yes.
If it could be coats for the winter. It could be clothing. It could be shelter. I mean, when I look at your because every year, one of my favorite reports that Stacy does is the school community liaison at a glance. She takes all the data for the entire fiscal year and kind of breaks it down. And in the referrals that the liaisons make, they make tons of referrals. And this past year, it'll be fiscal year 25, 1,777 referrals. Were made by the liaisons. Now, sometimes it's multiple referrals for the same youth or family, but still, that's a lot of referrals. And what I guess I want the audience to know is they're not just referrals for mental health kinds of things. When I look at this list, like you were saying, Robin, the food bank, I look on here, the Cleveland Food Bank, 121 referrals to the food bank.
Right.
So, clothes, school supplies, 208. Mental health, 165, but mentoring programs, 145. Advocates for families, another community partner, 99 times. Holiday assistance, how many times for a lot of us? I mean, I'm looking forward to the holidays, but I know that can be a stressor for a lot of families. Holiday assistance, 209. I mean, when you guys look at this list, do you guys get overwhelmed by how many referrals you're making and the different types of referrals you're making them to, I guess?
It can be overwhelming, but it's also a blessing if you think about it, because we get a lot of support in the Crestview community from local churches.
Okay.
And I'm happy to say that I don't believe anyone goes hungry during the holidays at Crestview, because we have so many partners who want to reach out and help, even individual families who will adopt a family and buy a Thanksgiving meal for them.
Yeah.
And just making those connections, knowing who, I guess, has the highest need or which family is most in need at that time, because it changes month to month, year to year.
Yeah.
Right. We're coming up on, with the holidays, and I think the liaisons have always been really the go-to people in the schools. They know who the families are that have the needs. Right now we're working on Shop with the Cop referrals. We partner with a lot of the community agencies to make those
to make that many referrals, just hit me, Stacy. That means you guys have to constantly be aware of what's available in all the different districts. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah.
That would be true. Like just a couple examples recently come to mind. Like even this morning, I got a message from a secretary that a trapper broke for a kiddo that we service anyone in the district. There's no barriers. So when I go back to school here in a little bit, I'll run to our supply closet and get him a new trapper. Or we had a family new to our district that didn't have a washer and dryer. The staff is very good about letting the liaisons know, hey, I have extra appliance or an extra bed or whatever, giving me their clothes. We have a whole care closet for all students in the district. So with the washer and dryer, one of our staff members got a new washer and dryer and said, hey, if you know someone. And that very next week, the parent was like, hey, we don't have this. I'm going to the laundromat. She's got like 6 people in the house. And I said, hey, I happen to know someone. So we went and picked it up, delivered it. And the one little guy at lunch tells his whole table, hey, she brought me a washer and dryer. And I'm like, oh, yes, I did. But so just little things like that.
Oh.
Like you said, it doesn't have to be mental health. It can, just be a one-time thing. Or, sometimes we've known the families for several years. So
yeah. Now, it's funny when you said the trapper. It actually makes me feel better because, most of the things I enjoy, because I'm so old, they don't do anymore. But I love that the trapper keepers are still around because when I was little, I got my trapper keeper folders, and every year I was very proud of my trapper keepers. So I'm glad the kids have embraced the old technology still because I thought, everybody's got their tablet or whatever, but I am glad that people still are using the trappers.
If it's old, it's new, right?
Yeah, I guess.
And I really think that what really strikes me is the broad range of referrals that we get.
Yeah.
So in the same day, I had a student brought to me who had a pair of shoes that had, the sole had fallen off one. Do you have an extra pair of shoes? Yep, I got a pair of shoes. In the same day then, I had a student brought to me, and they were concerned because he had made what was perceived as a suicidal comment. So he was having suicidal ideation. And so that's always the thing, So on the one hand, you're getting trappers and shoes and socks and a coat or whatever. And then it could just be, turn around and you have a student who is really in a emotional state that needs attention and make a referral to crisis.
Wow. And that kind of, it's almost, I don't want to say whiplash, but for you as workers, that's interesting, right? As Ted was saying, you can go from such extremes to some basic things to life and death sometimes. So yeah, you really have to be flexible and nimble in your knowledge and your ability to kind of move between these different situations. And I think that's the other thing I wanted the audience to know, that your liaisons are a very special group of individuals. And the reason we've insisted, some of the secret sauce, if you will, of the liaison program, of course, is Stacy Merriweather and her consistency as the coordinator of this program from the very get-go. But I think it does matter that you guys regularly gather as a team of liaisons to support each other, share information, uplift each other, because the work, you all learn from each other. And there hasn't been a ton of turnover, but, because I'm looking at my sheet, 25 years, Ms. Haversdock has been around. So some of the folks, Ted, 17 years, Stacy from the beginning. So, but there is some turnover. So I would think, Robin, you being a little bit newer to the team, have you felt that sense that you could go to any of the liaisons and get the support or bounce ideas or questions off them, and they're willing to help out and give you some maybe different perspectives on things?
Absolutely. And our weekly meetings are so helpful in that, with Tammy and Ted especially, they have experienced so much. And the brainstorming, problem solving, it just gives you, there might be days, David, when you feel like you just don't have an answer or don't know of a solution. And we will talk about it as a group, and then several ideas will come to the conversation and options. And it really helps because it is a stressful job, but having so many to lean on and to just turn to, it's so helpful. And it helps our students, it helps our staff. And I'm very thankful for just the mentoring that I get in my role from the other liaisons.
Yeah, as Robin, I was just thinking as you were talking, one of the things I want to mention, something we've developed over the recent years is a liaison mentoring program, which actually we have some of our more experienced liaisons being a mentor for some of the newer ones. And I have 4 long-termers. We got Ted and Tammy here, but we have Christina and then Jody as well serving as those. just to kind of be a support. Our team has grown. My time is stretched sometimes, so really just helping a quick person they could connect to, support, get some guidance from. And I think that's been a really successful addition to our program.
No, that's great. And you're right. I wondered about that, Stacy, because I think when you first became the coordinator, you weren't also the clinical director. And that's something that you've taken on in recent years. And I know that's a lot, and you manage a lot. But this program has always been very near and dear to you since you've been here since the get-go. And again, I don't want to move off the report too quick, so let me maybe end my thought on that is I wanted the audience to know over 2,400 students. Again, that's an unduplicated count, 2432, 2,432 students served in fiscal year 25. So that's a lot of folks.
Right.
And again, that's just the students. Obviously, parents, one or more parents also impacted. The schools also impacted. Obviously, our keynote this year was Superintendent Paramore, and speaking for Ashland City. I remember, I kind of mentioned it at the talk, but when I first asked him about it, he couldn't say quickly enough. Yes. I mean, he's all in. He just he's seen it, not only in the superintendent role, but when he was in different roles within the district about what a positive impact the program makes. So I get that. All of you need to know that whenever I'm out and about, especially during this levy season, talking to some of the school folks, they all say the same thing. They love the program. They love the work that you're doing. They know that their call, the education, the learning part can't always happen unless the things you guys are doing to help that young person or that family be stable. It is hard to learn if your stomach's growling and you have food insecurity or housing insecurity, or you've got a domestic violence situation at home and the chaos and the trauma around that. So your ability to stabilize these young people and families so that they can learn and be successful, they get that. And I think they don't have the time. They don't have the resources. They don't have the expertise it would take. So knowing that they have this resource in the liaisons is really something they appreciate. So even though they're not allowed to say technically during the school day that they support the levy, I just know that we've got a lot of folks that work in the school system that are going to vote yes for this levy, and I appreciate them. So appreciate you guys and the work you're doing. So real quick, I wanted to maybe, since we've got 3 actual liaisons, and we started to talk about it earlier, like what does Ted was starting to touch on this, but what's a day in the life of a liaison? What's it look like? I mean, obviously it maybe changes from day to day, but Tammy or Robin maybe add to what Ted was talking about. It sounds like things you don't always know exactly what your day might look like, but maybe give us an example of what does a day in the life of a liaison look like from your perspective?
I can talk about an incident this week. The day started with a dispute over a sock.
A sock.
And it ended with safety planning and adult in the district.
Wow.
But I can tell you that situation with the sock was just as important for that student as it was to find safety for the adult later in the day.
Yeah. So that was a crisis situation for them.
Absolutely.
So, okay. That's important, meeting them. So it could go from the sock to the safety plan. I like that. Can you beat that, Tammy? What's a day in the life of Tammy Haverstock look like, besides keeping your mother on the straight and even? Yeah.
True, that's a full-time job. So it obviously varies every day, but I mean, it can be anything for me walking into the building and a mom trying to talk her child into coming into the building. He's crying. There's lots of stuff going on at home. So just, getting him into the building with me, chilling out in my office until he regulates and, touching base with the teacher. It could be recess with a student hiding under a bench that's, had lots of trauma in her life. And, the principal's like, can you go out and help? And so I go out and I sit down on the bench and she thinks she's in trouble. I'm like, you're not in trouble. I came out to make sure you're okay. And she crawls out and climbs up onto my lap. And then she realizes it's time for lunch and she's going to be last. And I'm like, well, not today. You're going to be first. And so we go in the building, wash her hands, like just getting her, I think it's so important that these kids see that they're valued by someone that cares about them. And Hillsdale does a really good job. We're a small-knit community. And like Robin said earlier, no child in Hillsdale should ever be left behind, so to speak. And, whether it's shoes or clothing or school supplies or helping with an electric bill or something, there are lots of resources. Hillsdale
Yeah.
Cares is a huge thing for us. Associated Charities has been very good this year to us, and
Yeah.
so yeah, you just never know what you're going to get into. So you might have a best laid plan, but some days it's out the window.
And you have that ability to kind of adjust to the situation as it presents itself rather than sticking to, well, I really wanted to do these things today. You got to be willing, I think, to say, well, that's not what the day's actually going to
Right.
bring. So,
Right.
well, when you think about it, and I know Ted and Tammy have a lot of years to think on, but when I maybe ask you to speak to maybe a situation, a young person or a family that comes to mind as a success, do you, without getting into too much of the particulars or the details, do you have any situation or family or individual that comes to mind that you could share with the audience?
Yeah, we have students at Taft, and actually, it wouldn't speak to just one student because this has happened over and over again, where we have a student that, because of what's going on in their life outside of school, it really makes being at school very difficult for them. And children at the age that we have, a lot of times will show that in behaviors. They won't really necessarily sit down and say, I'm struggling with issues outside of the school, right? So developing a plan with staff, working together. The one student, we had a group chat, a text group, so when one person was struggling with that student, everybody on that group knew that they needed assistance, and we could just jump in and help out. And it's really nice to see once in a while you have those really great success stories where that plan keeps getting worked. The individuals in it understand the days are not going to be perfect, and that we're just taking it, one day at a time, and sometimes 5 or 10 minutes at a time. But to watch that gradually, that plan be developed and change and grow and work, and then to see that student, leave without needing sometimes not even much of those interventions anymore. Yeah. So I can really speak to that. I've seen that a lot. Ashland City Schools is really good about embracing that work and those plans and being willing to do that, because it's tough. When you have 28 other kids in your classroom, that aren't all perfect either. Right. And so I really feel that those plans that get worked like that are really, really incredible to see that growth.
That's good. Good. Tammy or Robin, any success stories, if you will, that come to mind when you think about some of your experiences?
I guess the one that always comes first to my mind is this has been a few years ago, but we had a student come to us in kindergarten, and by January, she had already been moved to 3 different placements.
Okay.
And so one good thing about the Liaison program is the family was known in Ashland because of some other siblings, and Loudounville, actually. And so with all of us being in the county schools, we can communicate and be like, hey, what concerns did you guys have? What involvement did you have? So that was very helpful in talking to my colleagues. But just knowing and working with Children's Services, one thing that I try to do is, I always feel like at least make the school environment successful for the student. Mm-hmm. Home life is, it's not fair to the child to be moved around 3 different districts in one year. So we worked it out where the student could stay at Hillsdale even though they were no longer in the district. And we have a teacher and his wife that agreed to take her in January of that same year. So that was the 4th placement in, just a matter of months. Yeah. And Children's Services, the state, had permanent custody, and they were later, it took about 3.5 years, but they did it. They adopted her, and it was just an enormous, blessing to everyone, and just to see that from, start to finish, and she's thriving and, doing well, and it's just amazing, to be a part of something like that.
Oh, that's great. Right. Robin, anything over your last 3 years or so?
I'd like to just comment on a program that we've implemented at Crestview is the mentoring program. Okay. We have a lot of retired teachers or pastors or individuals in the community who come in and mentor our students. And that has shown so much success just across the board with the boys and girls who have that adult who weekly comes in and just gives them their undivided attention. And that's a lot of things. One of the biggest problems that kids today are facing is that they aren't seen, they aren't heard, and due to whatever's happening in the family. But a lot of these kids, they want attention, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get that attention. Yeah. And with the mentoring program, these adults come in and they just give that child one-on-one time. It might be playing games, helping with their homework, and just showing that child that they actually matter to someone. Yeah. And some of those relationships started 3 years ago when I started, and now they continue. And one mentor has followed a girl up to high school. Yeah. And it's just...
You're seeing the positive impact of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And these kids, they gain confidence. Okay. They see that they do matter. Yeah. And not only to those in the school, but to these people who then become their friends in the community, go to their games and support them and cheer them on, and stay connected during the summer break. So it's been a great program.
No, that's awesome. And again, we time doesn't allow, but one of the things, Stacey, you've done is to ensure that the liaisons are always up to date in terms of the training, education, emerging trends, or things that our field presents. And, adverse childhood experiences is something that all liaisons understand, but maybe even more importantly, they understand resilience and what builds resilience. And as Robin was speaking about the mentoring and, again, having that stable, caring, attentive adult, even if somebody does have challenges at home, boy, it can make that a huge difference in the young people. So that's another aspect I think maybe the audience needs to understand. It's the liaisons are in that constant learning mode, and based on what's coming out of the science, but also based on what's coming out of the districts and the buildings that you are in. As needs emerge, you guys are always looking for, what's the research have to say? What's the best way to meet some of these emerging needs or trends that we're noticing? So, as we're nearing the end, I still have two burning questions, and I think the audience will too. It's like, why do you guys think this program is so helpful? Why is it so effective? What makes it effective? Because not all programs show the kinds of outcomes that you guys are recording over the last 20 years.
Well, I think one of them is the funding. Yeah. I mean, basically, it's free. It's free to families, at least. Families, there's no cost, and there's no hoops, or they don't have to come through an intake process or have a diagnosis. Yeah. And so we've allowed, it's very available and accessible, and I think that's part of why it is so effective.
No income guidelines, they don't have minimal paperwork of it all.
Right, right. So I think that's been huge.
Is that easy access, lack of hoops?
I think relationships are very important. When I was first a liaison, I worked in Loudonville. And to this day, I have a family that I work with in Hillsdale that the parents were students of mine in Loudonville. So just having that relationship where they, saw that they could count on me back then, and now they're relying on me with their own kids now. Yeah. So I think relationships are always so important, and not judging and just meeting them where they're at. I mean, I can remember a few years back, a couple of kiddos were home by themselves, very young, shouldn't have been. Mom came home when I was there with an officer, and she's like, "You think I'm a bad parent?" "No, but I think you made a bad choice." Like, not judging. She made a rash decision, just showing kindness and, being gracious, I think is very important. Yeah.
And those relationships, so many different levels. Relationship, obviously, with the young person, the family, the schools, but then the relationships within the communities because of all these referrals. So, I think that's a big one too, Tammy. You're right. The relationships that you guys have been able to form, which means you probably have to hire for that.
That's what I was going to I wanted to pipe in there. I'm going to give a shout out to my team.
Okay.
And I hope I can do it without crying. Oh. But, no, I really do think the reason we are so effective is that we are picky when we hire people. We have people that just have care about kids and families. They make connections with kiddos in the schools. This is, I guess, it's the hardest working group of people that I know, working very hard every day. This is not a job that somebody fresh out of high school or fresh out of college. I mean, they have a wealth of experience and knowledge and connections within their own communities. Yeah. So I really feel like that is what has made us so effective too, is that we have good, committed staff.
Yep, that makes sense. And that's not something that happens accidentally. So obviously, Stacy, this is something that you have ingrained, you've structured within the program itself. So that's a good point. Other things, Ted or Robin, anything else that you guys have noticed that just make the program so successful over the years?
Well, certainly the relationships with families and the students is paramount and can go a long way, when a need arises or an issue arises. But also the relationships that we've made with the school staff and administration. And so us being in the school instead of housed at a different location, we're really seen as part of the school. Yep. So then when a need arises, they come to us and ask for that assissance.
So some trust over the years you think is built up between the schools and the liaison?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, okay. It's almost like, in a way like we're kind of seen as maybe, staff there.
Yeah.
And so,
but an important distinction, because folks do ask that. Thank you for bringing that up, Ted. So all the liaisons are employed through Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. So even though, as Ted said, you guys are located within schools, you aren't school employees, and sometimes that's helpful because sometimes the parents like that buffer. They like the fact that you don't actually work or answer to the schools per se.
Yeah, that is another strength of the program.
Yeah.
Is that we have that mental health employer, but then we're in the school, so we do kind of have that what you call a buffer.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And we do a joint hiring process. I mean, just start working with the schools, making sure it is a true collaboration.
You're going to be there,
making sure we're
Makes
all
sense.
in agreement.
Well, and the other relationship there, being in the school and being seen and being trusted, then we help other service providers come in. So we have, case managers or counselors from Appleseed, but other agencies as well. And so then we can kind of communicate that this is a beneficial program. This is a positive person in this student's life. And so then they, we kind of help schedule those and coordinate those efforts to see kids at the school by those providers.
Right. Anything else, Robin, you want to add on why the program might be so successful from your perspective?
Just to kind of add to what Ted was saying in the relationships, and I joked earlier with you, David, that our fight song is Bridge Over Troubled Water. Yeah. But honestly, I think that is the role of a liaison because the waters are troubled, whether it be in the relationship with the student or even staff members who might be dealing with their own situations. And just being that bridge to kind of calm those waters and show them that there are answers.
Yeah.
There's hope. And I think sometimes when you're caught up in a crisis situation, people lose sight of the fact that there is hope. Yeah. And they're just focusing on the trouble.
Yeah, yeah. You guys carrying that hope for individuals and families, I think that's a critical strength. And that leads right into my last question. So some of you, I know Robin's only been around 3 years, but Tammy, 25, Stacy from the beginning, Ted, 17. So, I mean, has the program changed much in those years? When you think about, man, can you believe it's been 20-some years now? But, when you think about the program, has there been any major changes or has it been pretty consistent?
I think one of a big one that I've seen over the years is when we originally started. I mean, we were originally funded by a grant really early in the early stages, and then we had our mental health levy funding, right, which has blessed us so much over the years with our ongoing funding. But in recent years, schools have actually are stepping up to provide some joint funding for that. So I think that helps show that anyway that ongoing collaboration and buy-in for the program. So I think that the other one I want to say when we're talking about staffing, there has been some change in workforce and available people, and I don't know I think like I've heard that from a lot of different agencies like staffing, we have.
So even for your programs, maybe it's been a little harder to attract somebody because I remember in the early days, Stacey, when you invited me a couple to the interviews where you guys, I mean, when there was an opening, which was rare, but when there was all kinds of resumes flooding in because people had heard about these jobs. But the workforce challenges has impacted like everybody, even your program.
Right, definitely. So,
all right. Other things over the last 15, 20 years, you guys have noticed any changes in the program?
I just think there is an increasing amount of mental health needs.
Okay.
So, like many of our districts, not all of them, have school-based therapists right on site. And so that is really helpful to all of the liaisons to take some of that load off. But yeah, just the mental health needs are surfacing more. And I was talking with one of our principals just the other day about it. And he's like, I don't know if it's more of that or we're just more aware and like really digging in and just really trying that no child goes, left behind. So I think, it's such a blessing to have the school-based therapist working right there with the school liaison. Like Hillsdale has a mental health team. And so, our school counselors are on that with us also. And so we're just really trying to like get in and.
I think the awareness of mental health and that it's important to address it. I think I've certainly seen that grow just generally in our culture. And then there was like COVID was like this speed, like everybody's like, oh yeah, you guys are right about that. When everybody seemed to experience the disruption that COVID brought us, people were like, yeah, mental health is important, isn't it? Yeah. And when the whole country kind of felt disconnected, they recognize the importance of having connection with other people and people, speaking into their life, doing things with. So yeah, but you're right. I think, Tammy, that I've seen that too, just from outside the liaison, just in general, we talk more about mental health. Where the stigma continues to get lower and lower. It's not non-existent, but it continues to, I think, get lower and lower. People are more willing. I can tell you at our fairs over the years, as you guys know, because many of you work at our fair booths, you see it. People come to our tables and interact with us. And before, nobody would come to our table. So.
They come for those little
they do come from some of our giveaways. That might have been part of the plan. So.
If I could just add something real quickly, even though I've only been here 3 years, I've noticed a change in the family dynamics.
Okay.
In that a lot of parents, due to many reasons, are not in the picture. So we have a lot of grandparents who are raising their grandchildren and now great-great-grandparents.
Interesting.
And I've noticed that how I will react or respond or help a grandparent who's raising a grandchild versus a young mom, the situation's going to dictate what the needs are. Yeah. And it's also going to dictate the support that caregiver needs.
Interesting. Yeah. We noticed a spike in that during when the heroin and the opioid epidemic was particularly high in the county. It's since come way down, but when it was at its peak, there were so many parents that were struggling with their own issues of substance use that a lot of kids were moved from, their birth parents into, as you say, grandparents and great-grandparents ended up, and there were so many kids in custody, children's services. I remember that. But yeah, we had all of our contract partners were working a lot with grandparents and great-grandparents, and school had changed since they were in school. So there were all kinds of challenges during that time. But to your point, Robin, that's still going on. So that's interesting that you've seen that even over the last 3 years. So. Well, you guys have been wonderful with your time. I appreciate it because guess what, audience? They have to all go back and start seeing kids again, after they leave here. But so let me say, Robin Hawkins, Ted Lilly, Tammy Haverstock, and Stacy Merriweather, thank you so much for all your efforts over the years. I anticipate that given your passion, you will probably continue in this work because you are all in it because of your passion and your concern and your care for these individuals and families, and you see the difference it's making in the lives. So all I can say, and audience, please thank these folks. If you run into in the community, thank you for all you're doing for Ashland County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast. The podcast is a production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. You can reach the board by calling 419-281-3139. Please remember that the board funds a local 24/7 crisis line through Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. It can be reached by calling 419-289-6111. That's 419-289-6111. Until next time, please join us in keeping Ashland healthy.